Hey, welcome to the Old Guy and AI. This is for Gen Xers like me living in an AI world. Now, I have a question for you. What happens when knowledge becomes worthless? That AI future is coming. And depending on who you listen to, its impact on society and our culture could initiate historic abundance or pull apart the very fabric of what humanity needs to exist. I mean, what happens to Gen Xers and, well, everyone else when knowledge loses its importance in the world? When being a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer holds the same societal weight as being a line cook or a janitor? Well, let's find out. I've been interested in the work of exorcists for decades now. Yeah, it's really cool. But listen, I know what you're asking. What does this have to do with AI and the devaluation of knowledge? I'll get there, I promise. So, ever since I read a book called An Exorcist Tells His Story by Father Gabriel Amorth, one of Italy's most successful exorcists, I've dove deep into the rabbit hole of videos and interviews on YouTube with priests who perform exorcisms. And what fascinates me the most about their experiences is their understanding of the nature of things. And what I mean by that is, for example, angels and demons. Well, they have their own unique angelic nature. That nature has constraints. Angels, both heavenly and fallen, are limited by their nature, which to a certain extent makes them predictable. See, every creature, including man, has its own unique nature. A dog has its own nature and limits, and it's different than a pigeon's nature and different from a dolphin's nature. And that brings us to human nature. Now, we know that there's been various forms or versions of humanity or the human species on this planet, from Homo sapiens, that's us, to Neanderthals, to Denisovans, and a few others. But for a variety of reasons, Homo sapiens won. We're the last human standing. Why? Well, we're curious. We love to explore. We're adaptable. We're mobile. We take chances. We hunt for solutions. We need answers to the unknown. We grow complacent and require new challenges. We learn from our mistakes. And we are tribal. We also have societal and communal structures in which we flourish. Our communities have roles and hierarchies which are based on our families, our skills, our intelligence, our experiences. For example, a great warrior has a greater standing than an average one. A proven doctor has a higher standing than an average citizen, like me. A successful engineer has a greater standing than someone who doesn't even understand geometry. The point is that for our species to flourish, we need certain societal and communal structures to exist. Well, before the internet, information was valuable, right? I mean, you remember, it was valuable because it was hard to obtain. That's why when higher education wasn't grades 13 through 16, it was reserved for those people going to fill roles of the higher level hierarchy. Law books weren't digitized and available on your phone. You had to go to law school to access that information. The same with medical knowledge and so on. Finding information was also much more difficult and time consuming. You had to buy a book or borrow one and then read it and digest it and understand it and then apply it. And then you'd have to go find your next book or be mentored by someone with that experience that you want and learn from their experiences. That's why back in the day, being a jack of all trades was exceptionally valuable. This is before the internet, but because by acquiring that knowledge and experience, they had access to a volume of information most of us didn't. And they were able to apply those various forms of information in a way that was rare. Communities were structured under these hierarchies of knowledge. There would be someone who was good at finance and would be the banker, someone who was good at chemistry and would be the pharmacist, someone who was good at construction and they'd, I don't know, run the hardware store or maybe even build your homes. Someone who was good at selling and talking to people, well, they'd probably run their own business. Some people who are good at explaining and sharing information, well, they could be teachers. All these silos of knowledge and expertise were applied and led to roles, important roles, in our society. And then the internet came along and the information age began. Information became digitized and collected and available in an instant online. Now, any data you needed, nearly all of recorded history, you can access on your phone, and most of it's free. The result of the information age is that information lost its worth. It's worthless. But I mean, it still has value. I mean, it's important to have access to that information, but it's no longer a commodity. So, what happened when information became worthless? Easily accessible. Almost no barriers to entry. Well, having access to information became so easy, the challenge then became of being overloaded, right? We couldn't organize that much information in our brain. It's not the way we're designed. So people sought out others who shared their interests, who had investigated the information available to those areas of expertise, and they shared their thoughts online. And that became the rise of the influencers. Like, listen, I don't have time to search and filter through all the information related to fixing my car engine, but I can find someone online that fixes my car model and is able to access the relevant information. And because they have experience I don't, I can trust their judgment about what I should do. They've become my information filter. Now, that evolution of information access, well, it didn't really affect society very much. I mean, not at a foundational level, because it just sped up the natural process. Having access to so much information so easily just accelerated one's ability to view and consume that information. Before the internet, you could still do it. It just took a lot of time. There was no shortcuts back then. Experience you gained from consuming the information or applying it was the only viable path. So the impact of the information age was minimal and mostly beneficial. But what happens to society when knowledge becomes worthless? I've seen a couple interviews with Ahmad Mustaq. He's a British Bangladeshi businessman, and he's also a mathematician. And he founded Stability AI, and then he left and created a company called Intelligent Internet, which focuses on the decentralization of AI. Now, during one of his interviews, he said something that was really interesting. He said, "The really scary thing, though, is that people don't understand how cheap a unit of intelligence has become." Now, remember, LLMs break down the inputted data, whether that be text or images or sound, and they break it down into small bits of information called tokens. And then AI analyzes those tokens to generate a response. So the cost of asking AI a question is the amount of tokens that will be used to provide an answer. So Mustak says when ChatGPT 3 came out, it cost about $600 per million tokens. By the time ChatGPT 5 came out, that was down to 10 bucks, and it's continued to drop. The total amount of words you and I will speak in a year is about 10 million, I think. And that's down to about $5 worth of compute. The total amount that we think is about 10 times that. So that's about $50. And these tokens are getting smarter and smarter. So when you extrapolate the cost to replace an accountant's cognitive labor over the course of a year or two, the answer is about $10 a year. Think about that. Using terms like unit of intelligence and cognitive labor, they've been able to calculate what your knowledge is worth. Now, in this example, an accountant's knowledge is worth about 10 bucks. A doctor, I don't know what, 100 bucks? Like information in the information age, knowledge in the AI age will have value, but no worth. And that brings us to artificial general intelligence. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about how to quantify intelligence, but the general understanding of AGI is that you can kind of think of it like the character Data on Star Trek The Next Generation. Average intelligence is not being as smart as the average person, it's being as smart as all of the people. In other words, it's as smart as the average doctor, and the average lawyer, and the average project manager, and the average electrician, and the average enter your role name here. AGI means that it has the ability to learn and apply knowledge across any domain, and it can transfer reasoning from one field to another the way we do. And it can handle novel situations without needing specific prior examples. So, collectively, that AGI will be exceptionally smart. It will be the ultimate jack of all trades. It's funny how that's come around to be valuable again, isn't it? Except this time, that's artificial. So, all this makes me wonder what happens to our society when all these roles in our communities are flattened? When being a doctor is no longer a commodity, a worthy commodity, or a rare commodity? What happens when law is just a couple of keystrokes away? What happens when architectural plans are a prompt away? Yeah, I'm not talking about people losing their jobs or people becoming collectively dumber. That's a different discussion. I'm just talking about the impact of AI on the way humans flourish in their communities. AI will drastically shift that paradigm, and we have no idea what that's going to mean. Those like Elon Musk, they think that this evolution of AI will create immense abundance, but I think he's missing a key component: our human nature. We already have immense abundance. I don't think the world has ever been in a better place. Poverty is exceptionally low across the globe, historically speaking. Access to technology has never been easier. I mean, you can talk and connect to anyone, anywhere. You can virtually visit anywhere, even other planets. Goods and services have never been more abundant, at least in America. I mean, we live in a just in time society. We can go to a drive through and get food, whatever we want, basically at any time we want. We can go to a 24-hour drugstore and pick up cold medicine or bandages or snacks whenever we want. Think how much that would have been helpful on the Oregon Trail. We can connect with anyone in the world at any time. And yet, with all of this abundance, loneliness is at an all time high. Depression, anxiety, suicides are prevalent. If simply having access made humans flourish, we should never be happier than we are now. But that's not our human nature because we've replaced real communities with virtual ones. We've replaced real friendships with virtual friendships. And that's not good enough for us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be so depressed. We wouldn't have unprecedented anxiety. We wouldn't have all the challenges that we have today. Because virtual anything is not real. And humans flourish in real communities made up of real people with real skills. Whenever I see someone online who's having a meltdown, a couple of things occur to me. One is that obviously I feel really bad for them. But the second thing that comes into my mind is I don't think they actually have any real friends. Because if they had real friends, they wouldn't be online having a meltdown. They'd be talking to that friend or phoning them, or they'd be hanging out with them in person. You'd belong to a real community of real people who really care about you. What you're not going to do is go online and yell into the void and hope strangers you're never going to know somehow agree with you. I mean, it's sad that our society has evolved to that, and it's not healthy. So, more of that solves nothing. Like, as you get older, or at least as I've gotten older, I realize that when we live in a way that is disordered from our human nature, we're unhappy. That's a hole technology cannot fill. Now, I'm not saying that happiness derives solely from being ordered to our human nature, but when how we live has friction with what our nature prefers, well, that outcome is rarely positive. And the growth of AI will make one of the really critical components of our communities worthless. It could deter those who are natural nurturers, from pursuing jobs that use that natural gift to help others in society, if those jobs would even exist in the future. It could deter those who want to heal people from getting a job that heals people. Meaning could be lost. We, the Homo sapiens, we need struggle to overcome to gain achievement. We need challenges to grow in wisdom and get stronger. We don't need more ease. We need more purpose. Our meaning in life doesn't come from what we do, but why we do it. And a lot of that has historically been on filling the roles communities need, elevating our natural gifts into a career that, in the end, makes your world and hopefully the entire world a better place. And AI may take away those avenues of fulfillment. Look, I don't know how all this will play out, but there will be a period where technology will become more predominant in our daily lives, and that may put us at greater friction with our human nature. We'll be unhappy, but we won't know why. We'll be unmotivated. We'll be distracted from solving our own problems by scrolling, and we won't be able to be focusing on those problems in a way that matters. We'll be looking for technology to do it instead. And that's like turning to your dealer to solve your addiction. But these tech gurus, they think they know better. These few self appointed techno saviors will drastically change the way the world works and yet never seem to have cared whether or not we want to live in the world they're building. Now, granted, technological changes don't and shouldn't require a popular vote, but these changes are so drastic and they're at odds with much of how we find real value. You know, again, the basic thing jobs. People have jobs not just to do the work, they do the work so that they can provide for their family, so that they can experience the joys of life, that they can feed their children, provide an education, and do things for those that they love. If you take their jobs away, that the domino effect of that could be catastrophic to their mental and emotional health. I'm sure AI will provide solutions that we love in ways we've never dreamt. But will it be enough? Will we find meaning in other ways? Will we restructure our societies that benefit human flourishing? I don't know, but it looks like we're about to find out. So, what does this mean for us? Well, AI still has a long way to go to be the autonomous solution that techno gurus hope for. It still, on occasion, lies, schemes, falsifies information, makes poor decisions. That has to end before AI nirvana can be reached. So, in the interim, we still need to learn the tools, know how to apply them. Heck, maybe we can help mold a future that can be more efficient and abundant without stripping away meaning. Second, no matter how much tech can do for us, we can't get lazy. Look, our species has had to work very hard to survive. And that work, well, our species relishes doing nothing. It needs time off. So our impulse will be to embrace the tech and let AI do our thinking, provide us the answers and speed up the gap between wondering and knowing. But continue to push yourself. Don't just ask AI for an answer and then forget it. Use it, apply it, but remain capable without AI, not dependent on it. And third, embrace offline in person activities. We are a communal species. Remember how much fun it was to go to the mall and just hang out with your friends, right? Back in the day before cell phones and text messages? Just uninterrupted in person human interaction. Those connections are critical to a fulfilling human experience. Don't cede that to a virtual technological version of it. We do live in very interesting times, and we have no idea how it all turn out. Forces greater than us may be shaping an AI dominant future, and I don't know, that may not be all that bad. It could be amazing, so long as we don't lose our connection to human meaning in the process. Let's lead by example, Gen Xers. Let's prioritize human connection over the AI solutions trained on human experience. AI will have an important place in our society. We just need to make sure it serves us and not the other way around. Oh, finally, if you're new to AI and you don't know where to start, that's fine. I've created an app that can point you in the right direction. All you do is you enter your work experience, your skills, your hobbies, and preferences, and it will show you what AI tools fit your criteria. So join my community. It's free. The link is in the show notes, and you'll get free access to the tool. So check it out. And finally, I believe that time is the most precious treasure that we have. And so the fact that you have spent any of that time with me, that means the world to me. I mean that sincerely. So thank you so much for being here today. And Gen Xers, I'll see you next time.